Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of It's Messy, but It's So Good. And today, my guest is Kathy Nichols-Cassou. And Kathy was a film and entertainment industry nurse for over 25 years. And she also had a company called Kathy's Medical Production Company, supplying medical equipment for film, television, and commercials. She's also an author and an entrepreneur. I had the pleasure of meeting Kathy back in 1998, and she was instrumental in teaching me a lot about being a set medic and helping me get into the union, IATSE, which is International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. So Kathy has retired about 7 years ago, and now she focuses her creative passion on her company, K&D Unique Entertainment, and she books acts for venues primarily in Florida, but will book anywhere in the United States. So enjoy the show. Hi everyone, welcome to It's Messy, but It's So Good, and today I have a guest, Kathy Nichols-Cassou. Kathy has been in the film industry for many, many years, doing hundreds of films, and she is an RN, and I had the pleasure of meeting Kathy, I believe it was in 1998. Can't believe that. And it's a whole story, but I connected with her, and I was able to get into the union IATSE and become a film industry nurse part-time. And it was just like an incredible experience in my life. And I thank Kathy so much for being so open and for really forging the way for a lot of film industry nurses. So Kathy, welcome.
Thank you. It's
You're
great
welcome.
to connect with you again after all these years.
I know it is. And it feels so natural and, comfy. So Kathy, what I would love is if you could share your story about how you got into the film industry, because I know you had a company where you had medical equipment for films.
Right.
And if you could just share with us how you got involved and, why it was important to you to do this kind of work.
Okay. I was working at St. Vincent's Hospital and also part-time for a gastroenterologist. And someone had come into the office and they wanted to film in our office. And that's really how it got started. I had to stay there with them. A couple of weeks later, it was an independent film, low budget. And they called me and said, "We're doing a stunt. Will you come and stay with us for the day?" And I did. And I got interested in it. I remember being about 9 years old and saying to my mother, "I want to be a nurse, but I want to do everything," whatever that meant. I have no clue. But I certainly did. And I watched a show, Another World. It was a soap opera. And I used to watch it every day with my grandmother. And it wound up, they filmed 6 minutes from my house. And I wanted to get on the show and do some technical. So again, fate. I was working at St. Vincent's, and one of my patients was friends with the prop master on Another World. So, like every fan, I said, "Can you get me on the show? Can I just come down and watch?" And he said, "Well, I'm not sure. They don't let anybody in. You cannot believe how tight and small every scene is. People look at it, it looks like a pool and an enormous house, and they have a little waiting pool and maybe one door. But they certainly do a great job making, especially nowadays with the computer." But anyway, I called and I was told to call the nurse that did their technical. And I did. And at the time, she was having a class on doing technical on soap operas.
Oh, wow.
So I was kind of iffy about it. And my husband was great. He was always encouraging. And he said, do it. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it, but give it a try. So I took the class, and it was funny. During the course, I just knew I was taking over the company, which was crazy. So I got involved, I helped her, and I started bringing films into our little, well, it wasn't really a company at the time. It was basically us and having some people work with us. So her husband got transferred to Florida. And she said, I can't do this anymore, but I'll do the billing. And there were some problems with her. She knew her stuff, but personality wise, most of the time they didn't want her on set. So it kind of worked out for me. I did Another World. I did their technical, which was
Can I
awesome.
just ask you, when you say technical, do you mean consulting?
I used to have to read the scripts, anything medical, corrected.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to be at dry rehearsal, work with the actors. I would have to teach them what they were supposed to feel if they had a disease, teach them how to be the nurse on set. You have no idea out there how hard it is to teach somebody to put a blood pressure cuff on. I would never have believed it. Finally, I said, I'll put the cuff on. As the scene opens, you'll be taking it off.
Yeah.
And that worked out much better. But it was fun. I enjoyed it. As you know, they always have wrap parties. They give us enormous gifts. It's like a family when you work on any show because you're there from morning till night. You go home, you sleep. You don't even eat at home. You get up, you get dressed, you go to work. Food is provided. You're there 16 hours a day. The sun comes up, it goes down, it comes up. I did a 24-hour day one time on a Wednesday, but you have to be passionate about it and you have to love it to do it.
Yeah.
And I think you have to love the people because I really did love my crew and my cast. And you're there to help them through it. And unless you're a complete idiot, they really are happy that you're there because if they get hurt, they want to know that there is someone there.
Right.
And of course, as you know, we treated everything from a scratch to a heart attack to broken bones. There's a lot of equipment on set. People are tired. They get hurt constantly. I used to give my guys e-boost when they were going home because a lot of accidents happened when they were on their way home, especially when they got close to home because they'd let their guard down and they would literally fall asleep. So you want to look out for a lot of things. You want to be right there. You don't want to be off in a corner reading a book, waiting to be called. You need to be on set. So if somebody falls, you're right there to help them.
Right.
So soap operas was what I started with. And then I met Danny Aiello Jr., who I absolutely loved. He was a stunt coordinator. They had called and asked me to do Jacob's Ladder, which was actually my first feature film. And they called my partner at the time and said, oh, we love her. We want her back every day. Wow. So I kept moving towards that and less at the hospital, less with the GI. And I just loved it. And I basically learned as I worked.
Right.
because it is a different industry and it's a different type of person you're working with. And I was told one time by a hairdresser, we love you because you become part of the crew.
Mm.
You're not separate from us. And, we have a lot of fun on set. They do crazy things. I had a tent. It was cold and rainy, and the grips were great and would put up a tent. And then I had the prop people put a big sign on my tent that said psychic reader. So they do crazy stuff. You're together a lot of hours and you need to have a sense of humor and enjoy what you do. So from there, I had got asked to do Bonfire and Fisher King because it's a very transient business. So you work with a group, and then when that show is over, they disperse and some go to this film, some go to that. So you can get called from a number of people. So obviously I couldn't be at two places at one time. Of course, today with AI, I probably could do that. Not that I'd want to, but I started hiring people to be on set and training them to be on set, which was another area I went off to. I started training people to be set medics, which entails RNs, paramedics, EMTs. So that branched out. Prior to that, we got tired of getting the wrong equipment when we had to set things up. If we needed, say, a nasal cannula, they would send us a pediatric one for a child. So we decided to go into the prop house business, which was a lot of fun because we were grabbing stuff from different places. Then we did product placement with Hillrom. But I remember going around with things in the trunk of my car and actually renting out from the trunk of my car.
Wow.
I had a bunch of lab equipment that a pharmacy was closing and had given us. So I do remember before we got our space on 26th Street, actually renting out from the back of my car, which I thought was kind of funny. And then we rented 4,000 square feet and, excuse me, we set it up. We had hospital rooms, doctors' offices, etc. So people would come up and shoot print ads. You couldn't shoot because of the sound. There was too much. We were on the West Side Highway, but you could do print. So we had somebody running the prop house. At the time, my daughter ran it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were out in the field. And then again, when she moved to Florida, it became mine. So I just kept expanding it and going more into film and TV. And at that time, we didn't have a medic on set every day. That was a California thing. So when California would come in to shoot, we'd have to have a medic every day on set. And then lo and behold, on an NBC show, someone got hurt and someone was there from California and said, well, what did the medic say? And they said, oh, we didn't have a medic today because we didn't have children or stunts. And they said, no, you have to have a medic every day. And that's how I got to do 30 Rock. Because if you have one stunt a season, it was a lot on 30 Rock. And we primarily were in studio. But they changed everything and we went towards having a medic every day on everything, which is how it is now. So I did over 100 films, over 50 TV shows and commercials, got to be in the credits. which was awesome in the beginning, and then it became, oh, okay. But I met such wonderful people, and I think we had a phenomenal group of medics. Then we leaned towards, someone came in, I won't mention any names, but kind of upset the flow of things and was pretty antagonistic and wanted to get in the union and block us out. So I called the head of the union every day, finally had a meeting with him, which was very pleasant. He even said, I thought I was meeting with an adversary, but you're very pleasant to meet with. And I got all our people into the union, which was very beneficial because we get retirement, we get 401ks, and a lot of the benefits.
Yes.
So we moved on from there. So then I wasn't putting people on set because it became a union thing. But I did work with an ambulance company, and when there was a big stunt, I would put the ambulance on set.
Right.
But we still worked together as a group, and if I couldn't do something, I would refer you or someone else to do it, someone I knew that was competent. And we just kept growing and growing, and it's probably the highlight of my career. I've done private duty. I've worked in the hospital. I've worked everywhere except the OR, which is the operating room. But I did work the operating room on Another World. They asked me to be on camera. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. And they said, no, we know you'll be good. We want you to do that. So I was in the operating room on Another World.
Yeah.
That is my claim to fame. And we just bloodied this poor person up a lot. We had a lot of confidence. And then they asked me to be in the emergency room scene. And at that point, I was so comfortable. I was standing in the back, and I actually told the actor, could you please get out of my camera shot? Which you can do when you work on something for years because you become part of the family.
Right. Right.
People ask me all the time, what was your favorite show? That's difficult because
I was going to ask you that.
see, I anticipated the question because each one was different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like traveling. I traveled a lot in between, and I've been on every continent. And people will say, what was your favorite spot? And each one, again, was different and gave me different things.
Right.
But I loved working with Hugh Grant. I will say that. He was a doll. And I worked with Nicole Kidman a lot. Oz was one of my favorite shows.
Mm-hmm.
When they called me to do Oz, because I had done the beat with them, I thought I was going to the Wizard of Oz at first. But as you know, it was a male prison show.
Yeah.
A lot of testosterone on that set. And they were fun. They were such an amazing group. I did Boardwalk Empire. Near the end of my working on set, I was doing Boardwalk Empire, and then I'd go to 30 Rock. And then I was back on Boardwalk Empire. And I kept saying, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to retire. And then I'd get a call from someone that I had worked with, Anthony Katagas. I started out doing commercials with him, and I always said, you're going to make it big, because he was phenomenal and he was great to the crew. And he called, he got an Oscar for, I think it was 13 Years a Slave. And I was down in Mexico. A friend of mine was performing there, and I was with his wife. And we went to the awards. They had it for us on the beach with the red carpet, and we sat on the beach with the tablecloths and everything. And they announced Anthony, and I was so proud.
Oh.
Anyway, he called from California because he always liked the same crew. And I said, okay, I'll do one more. Then prior to that, I was asked to do the Michael J. Fox TV show. And I said, oh, I want to work with Michael again. So again, I didn't get out. I know, it kept pulling me back. And then someone asked me to manage them. They were actually an Elvis tribute artist in New York. And I said, well, I've never done that before. And they said, well, I never had a manager before.
Mm.
So I kind of went towards that, but I didn't leave the film industry. What I did was, because we could work, and I know it's increased now, when you retire, you can work X amount of hours on set and still get your pension check.
Mm.
So I did construction because that's the only type of work you can do where you know how many hours you're working.
Right,
So,
which means construction when they're building sets.
right, prior
Everything,
to
yeah.
the shooting, they're
Right.
building the set, which is the job they do is totally incredible. I don't know if you saw when they did a Broadway show and they actually built Broadway
Yeah.
on one of the studios. Unbelievable. So I was doing that and managing the Elvis guy. Then he had shows in Florida, and that's how I got down here and met a lot of people before I even thought about moving here, and switched careers into being a booking agent.
Mm.
And I have a business partner, and we do it as fun because we enjoy the shows. We know all the entertainers. We want to help them out to get work. And actually, this week, I have one of the entertainers, his fiance and mother in law to be, staying at my house.
Aw.
So I always, when they come down, they stay at my house.
And your company is called K&D Unique Entertainment.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah, because Kathy and Donna.
Do you ever work at all in Florida you don't do any set medic work any longer?
No, it's different down here than New York.
Right.
I
Right.
had someone that worked for me that came down here and did do that. The pay rate is much lower because the cost
Right.
of living is lower down here. And it's a different setup.
Yeah.
I think New York is very unique. It's not California. And again, when we had shows come in from California, they would say, it's incredible. I know some people on set. I could work in California my whole life and never meet the same people ever.
Wow.
And it's a different feeling. In New York, if you ask someone working on set, they'll say, oh, yeah, I'm a grip. I do Blue Bloods. And it's not that intense for them. It's like you saying, oh, I work in the grocery store down the corner.
Mm.
But you go to California and it's like an obsession.
Mm.
Everybody I found out there is, no matter where you go in a restaurant, everybody's auditioning for you.
I know. I remember on vacation, and you just see people running lines by themselves walking down the street.
Yeah, it's like, this is what I have to do instead of, yeah,
Right.
yeah, I got to get up early because I'm on set tomorrow. And I found also in New York, like, I'd book a show and somebody'd say to me, oh, what do you do? And I say, oh, next week I start on such and such. And they say, oh, who's in it? And I say, I don't know. It's not like,
Yeah.
that obsession that you need to know.
Right. You're doing a job, and you're going to do it well, and you're going to show up, and
Right. It's
who's
what
ever
you
there is
do.
there.
Exactly. It's what you do. And they're people. I will say, when I worked on Another World initially, I was excited about it because this was something I watched every day.
Right.
So I was actually going to get to meet the people. Another funny story, prior to doing any of this, Another World used to have like a meet and greet and dinner in New York once a year. The whole cast would be there. You would pay for your dinner and get to meet them and so forth. It was very nice. I took my mom and I took my aunt, and we went. And at the time, they had the camera crew as you were going in and saying, anyone want to be interviewed? We're doing a promo for the show. So my aunt pushes me and said, go ahead, go do it. So they asked me a couple of questions and said, who's your favorite actor? And I said who it was. And they said, well, why do you like him? And out of my mouth came, he's got great buns. Went hysterical. I was in their promo every week. Even when they switched out people, there I was prior to the show. I was like, oh. And then I got to work on it. So that was very cool for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Such amazing career. And like when I was on set, which was not very much because I had another job and I would just kind of fill in. Um, it is such a unique experience. And I remember, it's so important too. You're really there to be responsible for everyone's health, including the extras.
Yes.
And, for instance, if you have 90 degrees and you're shooting outside in New York City, you have to make sure people are hydrated. And, it's a big responsibility. And it's just so different. I've done so many different things in nursing, and just what you said, it's just such a unique experience. And I think, it's like as nurses, we're nurturers, right? So
Right.
like you're bringing that energy, I think, into the set because you're the one that's there. Obviously, everybody has a job, but you're really taking care of people. And like you said earlier, people have this sense of um connection, you know, and it's a sense of feeling safe, I think, and it's an important feeling in any, especially a work environment like that, where you're using all different types of stunts and equipment and, anything could happen.
Well, you
But,
become a family.
it's a family. And I didn't get to experience that, like, obviously, like you did, because I just would fill in.
Mm-hmm.
But, anyway,
But
whatever it was interesting and fun.
you're there early in the morning on Monday. You may start at 6. By Friday, you're probably coming in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and working till Saturday morning. And one thing that impressed me, you're with people 2, 3 months, depending on the show. Stepford Wives, I think we were together 6 months. It just kept going and going. And every morning when you walk on set, everybody says good morning to each other.
Mm,
No matter if you've just worked 2 months together or one day together, it's an everyday thing.
yeah.
And if you need help with something, even at home, somebody's there to help you. When I had moved from Sheepshead Bay to Staten Island, the construction, well, when my husband passed, first of all, the head of construction said, if you need anything fixed in your house or done, just let me know. Or
Oh,
wait till you get a list. And then when I moved, they did my house, what I needed done, because I was working on an HBO Al Pacino movie. And first I was in 2001. I was on construction. Then we did 3 months of shooting. Then it was 3 months of construction and then 3 months of shooting. I was actually in 2001, was around September, October, they called me and asked me to do the show. And I was the only one working because obviously nothing was prepped, nothing was going on. And the only people that worked were the people that I'd hire, because if we were out shooting, I needed somebody to be with construction and so forth. But that was interesting because we had just gotten into the union and it was a union shoot, but the medic's position wasn't union.
Right.
And I said, I will help set it up for you, but I can't do it because it's not union. And she said, well, we want you, so let me see what I can do about making that position union. So I actually got the job to be union for the medic.
Yeah, that's great.
And that was a whole year shoot. That was very interesting. But, you know, in the beginning, I'd say, I wonder if I'll get a call for another job. And it was crazy because I think I turned down more than I did. I did all the Law and Orders, and I could because at the time, you didn't need somebody there every day. So I got to do basically all of the TV shows that were in New York or that came. Right. Without a Trace was another show I used to watch, but they filmed in California, but they would come in the summertime, which a lot would do just to get the feel of New York and do outside shots. So I got to do that also. So I got to do a lot of things that I myself enjoyed watching.
Yes, that's always thrilling. It's so when I got to work on The Sopranos, I thought my head was going to explode. Because that was my favorite show.
I covered that a couple of times for the person that did it, Kathy Pellegari, because I was doing Oz at the same time.
Yeah.
But I worked on Sopranos when Frankie Valli was on, and they were killing him that day. So that was great. And we got to meet a lot of people that would come to set because their actor friend was working on set, or they were passing by because a lot of them are in the city and they would stop by.
Right.
So we got to meet a lot of people, which was interesting.
Kathy, what would you say was the most challenging thing about being a set medic?
Oh, the 50 Cent movie. I used to say 50 cents, and my son said, Ma, it's 50 cents. Okay. And we were up in the Bronx. And of course, people are outside and they have barriers. But he used to go over to them and just throw dollar bills in the crowd.
Wow.
So you can imagine the chaos. And I remember the last night, one of his bodyguards was holding on to the barrier. They were trying to get through.
Wow.
And he pulled his shoulder. He dislocated it. So a lot of things happened. And that was probably, well, also for love of the game, because I had 4,000 extras in Yankee Stadium.
Wow.
I know. And at first, they said, have an ambulance there with you, which of course I was providing. So that was through my company. So that was good for me. But after 2 days of going from the field up into the bleachers, up and down, and trying to be here and there, I went to the production manager, who was great, and said, I need 2 things. Lose the ambulance, I need another medic with me, and I need a first aid room. and he said, "You got it." So we had a first aid room on the ground level. So one could be in there and one could be outside on the field.
Yeah.
So, and it was funny because the first aid room, you'd see people lined up every morning. Because there's a funny thing when people are diabetics and they're coming to set, they don't take their pills or shots. That always blows my mind. I remember Spider-Man 3. We were outside and I treated more diabetics, and I'd say, "Did you take your medicine?" "No, because I was coming here." "But you're going to work like you go to work every day. Why?" So I had a lot of chocolate on hand,
Yeah.
basically.
Well, it also gave you an opportunity to do some teaching,
Yes, yes, you're
which,
always teaching.
yes,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
And people do come to you with questions, or people will come to you after the weekend. I had one guy say, "I have glass in the bottom of my foot. I stepped on something. My wife wouldn't look at it. Would you please check it?" You get things like that. You treat the after effect on a Monday also.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's great, and I love the people I worked with. I really enjoyed.
yeah,
If I
yeah.
had to say something bad about it, it would be the weather and the
Mhm.
hours.
Yeah. What kept you going, like, to have such a positive attitude? And I know, like, we all through life, we go through the ups and downs, but what really helped you to just keep going and have a good attitude and do the best that you could? Because it is a challenging, job. It's a lot of responsibility.
Well, I think because I knew, and making a decision about your life choice is probably the most difficult thing you have to do. And people, as you know, change their careers in their 30s, their 40s. We throw our kids into college and say, "Okay, decide what you want to do for the rest of your life." And I was blessed because I always knew I wanted to be a nurse. And I think if you want to be a nurse, and sincerely go in for it for the reasons that you should, that is part of your makeup and who you are. So you want to help people, you want to teach and make their life better, and you enjoy being around people. We'd have fun on set. We didn't just sit there and, "Okay, I'm taking care of you wound." I'd have guys come over to me and maybe they hurt themselves 3 times that day, and I'd say, "Oh, for Pete's sakes, this is the 3rd time. You think I have nothing else to do but take care of you?" And you play with them and you put them at ease because you are enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole thing. I was blindsided about nursing because when I finished my course, I thought I was going out there and everybody was going to know everything and I wasn't going to know everything. And you get on the floors and people sit at the desk. And I just never did that. I wanted to be with the patient.
Right.
And I'd make my rounds in the morning and say, "Anything I can do for you?" Even if they asked for a box of tissues, I'd go out, I'd remember each room, I'd bring them what they needed, or I'd go back and say, "We had none, I had to order it." And it's funny because you don't think about that. Just like being on set, everything I did to me was what you should do.
Yeah.
And I got so many compliments from patients on that said, "You're the only one that asks us what we need and you actually do it." They
Yeah.
just never come back or totally forget.
Yeah.
And that
It's
used
it's
to blow my mind
it's
because,
it's like having all that in it's really doing your job with a lot of integrity. That's what it is.
well, and it's doing what I felt needed to be done. I never felt I was going overboard or doing more than I should. When I worked on 30 Rock, because we were in studio 98% of the time, I started posting health hints up on one of the stage doors. And the production manager said, please keep doing that. The guys love it.
Oh.
Had nothing to do with taking drugs or taking this pill. It was all health.
Right.
What do I do to prevent this from happening? What is good for this organ to do? So I continued to post that, and somebody said, you should make it a book. So this is very funny because I went once to a psychic who said, when you get older, you're going to write a book. I said, never, never. I don't like that. I don't want it. That's not me. I have to have hands on what I do, and I have to be active. So lo and behold, I wrote a book called Cinematic Health and Wellness, put it in pocket form because it was primarily for people that worked on set that could just look something up quickly. And in the back, I had found God's Pharmacy, and everything that we can eat relates to an organ. So I put that in the back of my book.
That's brilliant. And I bought that book.
Yeah, did you? Oh, okay. Did I sign it for you?
No. I think I got it like through the mail or something. I don't know. Maybe you did, Kathy. It's possible.
Send it back. But, it was helpful hints and things that they had to deal with.
Absolutely, because you were doing preventive health,
Right.
which is, we know as nurses, that's critical and
Exactly.
is so lacking, today in our healthcare system. It's much better than it used to be, but,
Well, everybody wants to just pop a pill. Everybody wants a quick fix.
Right.
I've got this. Give me a pill that'll fix it right away. Instead of, listening to your body and doing what is best for your body.
Yeah.
Hopefully, with our new health person, we'll get rid of some of the things we shouldn't be eating and things we shouldn't be taking. So hopefully we're on the road to getting healthy again.
What would you say, and I asked all my guests this question, was the biggest gift or gifts that you received personally from being a film industry nurse?
I think the fact that the crew always came to me and said, you're the best set medic.
Aw.
And I heard that from other medics that were friends. Of course, if they weren't, they wouldn't have told me. That they would do something and say, well, now am I your favorite medic? And they'd say, well, you could be second. Kathy's still my favorite. And I think it was because I genuinely cared about them.
Yeah.
And I cared about their health. And I would watch them because, especially men, they'll be on set and they rub their arm or whatever. And you see they're in pain and they don't always come over to you. So you have to anticipate that and go to them.
Right.
Or, people have good weekends and they come in and say, I've got this headache and And I go, yeah, right. You've got a hangover. Don't kid me. I know what you got. And I'd have this special portion I'd fix up for them. And within 20 minutes, they'd come and say, I feel so much better. What did you give me?
Yeah.
And, you just have to know your people. Like when you work in a hospital, you need to know your patients.
Right. So as far as now, you're doing the K&D Unique Entertainment. You live down in Florida. Is it okay if I give out the number if people would like to contact you? You're focused more in that area where you are, which is in Central Florida?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
we also book people up in South Carolina.
Oh,
I mean, we'll book anywhere. That's not an issue.
okay. Well, Kathy, your number out there is 917-669-6729. If anyone out there is interested, um, get in touch with Kathy. She's going to take good care of you and her partner. And I'll also put it in the show notes so people could refer to that if they would like
Thank
to
you.
reach out to you. And for anyone that's looking to go into this type of field, because anytime I would speak to people about, oh, well, I'm a film industry nurse, they were like, "What? How did you do that?" Um, any suggestions or recommendations for people out there that would like to try something like this if it resonates with them and they feel like they have the ability to do it? Any recommendations that you would make?
The only issue I have with that, see, when I was up in New York, I would have courses
Hmm.
and I would train people to be a set medic. And then when I moved down here, what I did was I have a CD and a booklet on how to be a set medic. And I was selling the course. I think people need to have some kind of background because it's totally different from working in a hospital or working anywhere else. And
Absolutely.
I think you need to know the protocols and so forth, what you can do, what you cannot do. And I don't think there is anything like that now up in New York.
Right. Do you sell a course like that?
I
Or
do. I do. I don't advertise. If someone comes to me, then,
right.
I will. And I have that up on the website. But it's a different field. And you need to know
Absolutely.
when you walk on set, who do I go to? What do I do? What's the first thing I need to know? And it's not the same. I keep hearing. I think we had an excellent group.
Yeah.
And our group was like a family, and we worked with each other and we helped each other. And I think it's getting too diverse now, too many people in it that are in it because I want to meet the stars. And that
Mhm.
should not be your criteria.
Right. And also post-COVID. I mean, it's different.
Right. It
Um,
is definitely different. And the rules on set are different. So things have changed. I loved it when I did it, but if I was going back to do it, I don't know if I would love it as
yeah,
much.
right. I get
Well,
that.
I guess I would because you're always the only person on set. You know, I remember when I had a partner, she wanted to spend X amount of dollars on advertising and everything. And I said, no, let's not even do that. And then when I was alone, I had so many people come to me, and I was in magazines and got interviewed on Good Morning America, et cetera, et cetera. Because, like you said, people were like, I never thought about that. I never knew they had medical people
Right. And
on a
that's how
set.
I found out about you through the nursing spectrum. You were interviewed in there.
Right.
And is it okay if I give out your email that people could contact you?
Sure.
Kathy at setmedic at gmail.com.
At Yahoo. I'm sorry.
Oh, at Yahoo. Okay. I didn't know that.
You've been emailing me.
Yeah, I should know that. I have the old information written down. And also, we'll post your website. So if people want to reach out that way. So
Okay, great.
anything you want to share before we say goodbye for today, for now?
No, but it was a pleasure. And
Yeah, it was so good to
actually
connect.
catching up was a pleasure with you.
And thank you so much for sharing, your career and your passion and your experience, because it is such a unique field in nursing. And
Yes.
I'm a firm believer of combining interests in nursing.
Well, I think nursing is one of the careers that you can go almost anywhere with.
Absolutely. And I remember at one point, I had a degree in horticulture before I became a nurse. So I actually became a horticultural therapist. And, but my nursing background was instrumental in that because I had I knew how to work with patients and I
Right.
had that that skill. And I was able to combine it. So nurses out there, leave
Yes,
leave your mind open to anything that you're passionate about because I swear there's a way to combine any of your passions with nursing. So
absolutely.
yeah.
And I still use it in the entertainment field because
Yes.
either they'll call me up and ask me questions, or I had a good friend who actually hadn't eaten all day. He was doing a show I was at, and he drank a beer, which was the worst thing he could do. And he was perspiring, had on a heavy jacket, suit jacket, had gone outside and literally conked out. And they called me, and I went out and I took care of him. And you could have taken his jacket and just wrung it out. That's how much he
Wow.
perspired.
Hmm.
But I took care of him, and I kept telling him, don't go with the ambulance. You don't need to, because funds were low and I knew he'd get a huge bill. And it was kind of ironic because the EMT said to me, well, he has to come, his blood pressure's low. And I said, well, what is it? And he didn't answer. And again, I said, what is it? And he said, well, I'm going to take it now. So how do you know it's low? That's another thing I want to say, especially if you work on set, you need to be assertive.
Yeah.
When you know you're right, stick to your guns. I had someone on set, a background person, who completely was getting hallucinating, spacing out a little. Nobody knew who she was. They sat with her at lunch. She came by herself. We called an ambulance. I treated her the best I could because we couldn't get any information, basically. Um, of course, they took her in the ambulance, shut the door. A little while later, they opened the door and said, oh, she's okay. We're going to let her go. And I said, no, you're going to send her to the hospital because I'm not putting this girl on a train and she has another episode and nobody knows what's wrong with her. I said, you're taking her to the hospital. And I made them take, and they did. So sometimes you do have to be very upset. If you know you're right, don't let
Absolutely.
anyone talk you out of it.
Yep. No matter what environment you're in nursing.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly.
Sure.
Always do the best
Yeah.
that you can for your
Yeah.
patient, even if it puts you on the line. And I
Yeah.
always found too, if I found someone that I felt couldn't do the scene, the stunt coordinator and even the director were very receptive to what we
Yes.
said,
Yes. That's
because we're looking out for everyone's good. So,
exactly.
yeah. And even silly little things. I remember somebody was in the scene in a wheelchair and he was supposed to try to go over the desk to choke someone. And I said to the stunt coordinator, did you lock the wheelchair? And he said, no, I didn't think of it. I said, lock the wheelchair because when he gets up, the wheelchair is going to move and he will get hurt. So
Yeah.
you have to watch, be observant for everything. I guess
Yeah. And
that's my best advice.
we could take for granted that people know things, but they don't.
They don't. Want to hear a funny scene before I go? I was working on a set, and these things are obvious to us, but obviously not to everyone because we do it on a daily basis. They were supposed to be picking up a patient. They lowered the stretcher, put the patient on the stretcher, and then were walking to the ambulance, but never raised the stretcher. So you've got the two actors literally bent over, pushing the stretcher that is to the ground to the ambulance. Now, I was not there for technical, but I said, you got to raise that. So, I mean, there are funny things that happen, but again, be observant.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kathy.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Enjoyed this, and I know people listening will enjoy it. And we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thanks,
Take care.
Kathy. Take
You're
care.
welcome.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for sharing your wisdom and your passion and experience in the film industry. And I know that any nurses, medics, or paramedics that are interested will be motivated by your long career. And some of the podcast highlights today was how Kathy, her journey from soap operas to leading films, TV series, and commercials, and her entire career, which was over 100 films and different venues in the film industry. We also talked a bit about the vital role that nurses and medics play on set, serving as technical consultants, reading scripts, and guiding actors to ensure authenticity and accuracy, and of course, taking care of their health. Kathy also talked about her deep passion for caring for the crew and talent, and also her book, which she created for crew to keep them healthy working on the film sets. And it was focused a lot on preventive health. And then she shared a lot about her prop company and the pivotal role in helping medics, nurses join the IATSE union, securing them much better benefits, protections, and higher pay. So if you'd like to contact Kathy, she has her new venture, which is called K&D Unique Entertainment. You can reach her at kathysetmedic@yahoo.com, and the website is kdunique.com. And there's a phone number also listed in the show notes. So again, I want to thank everyone so much for listening, and also to Kathy for sharing her very unique and creative experience as a film industry nurse. So thank you so much, and we will see you next time.